Back here. Check, check. Hello, test. Check, test. ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da Welcome everybody, Temple Beth-El. As we start, let all the week fade away as we enter into Shabbat, and let our consciousness come to that. All the cares we had, all the fears and worries, asking God if He can help us let that go, so we can just be one with each other. So we start on page, everyone has a book, we start on page 2 with the candle lighting. What's interesting about the candle lighting, a lot of the brachas we do, we usually, like before the challah, before food, we usually say the blessing first and then we do the mitzvah. And with this, we light the candles first and then say the blessing, which is very interesting. And we pull the light towards ourselves. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. And then we turn to page 5 for the blessing over the wine. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'yava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila l'mikra el kodesh zecher etziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta v'yotanu kidashta mikol hamim B'Shabbat kodshecha b'yava uratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. So usually the Amen is said by the congregation, and very often in Reform music and liturgy, we say that the cantor sings the Amen with everybody, right? But you guys know how to say the Amen, so I'm skipping the Amen because it's more traditional and it's more what we generally do. Oh, sorry. All right. We turn to page for Shalom Aleichem. We turn to page, sorry, Sorry, I just passed it. I am not able to find it, actually. But I think you guys know this one. Okay. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boechem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech malachei amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leshalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seidchem leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech, malachei amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, we turn to welcome the Shabbat bride on page 20 for Lecha Dodi. We will sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. Lecha Dodi lekrat kala yadadai 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 bnei Shabbat nikabelah. Lecha Dodi lekrat kala yadadai 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 bnei Shabbat nikabelah. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad Hishmianu el hamyuchad Adonai echad Ushemo echad L'shem multiferet ve'lechila. Lecha Dodi lekrat kala yadadai 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 bnei Shabbat nikabelah. Lecha Dodi lekrat kala yadadai 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 bnei Shabbat nikabelah. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki him mikor haberacha mirosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh v'machshava chila. Lecha Dodi lekrat kala yadadai 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 bnei Shabbat nikabelah. Lecha Dodi lekrat kala yadadai 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 bnei Shabbat nikabelah. Hitori kiva orech kumi uri shidaberi kevod Adonai alai lech nigla. Lecha Dodi lekrat kala yadadai 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 bnei Shabbat nikabelah. Lecha Dodi lekrat kala yadadai 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 bnei Shabbat nikabelah. We rise and we turn towards the door to welcome the Shabbat bride. Boi v'shalom ateret bala גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי, 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 בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ידדי, 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 בני שבת נקבלה. So we now turn to page 26. Yitkadal v'yitkada shemei rabba, b'yamadi v'rachirotei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon, uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, bagala, bagala, ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה ברכו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ואמרו amen. So we'll read on page 29. There is one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within himself. There is one who leaves the circle of herself and sings the song of her people. There is one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping the highest perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. Nevarech, let us bless. We turn to page 32, and we sing Ahavat Olam. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha ahavta Amcha ahavta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu lemadeta Otanu lemadeta Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shachbenu Uvkumenu nehatziach b'chukecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה נגה יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל אוהב עמו Yisrael. We rise for the Shema on page 34. And we traditionally take our right hand and cover our eyes to go inward and to focus on these words more. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malcho Le'olam V'ed. Page 36, V'ahavta. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantaham levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'vetecha u'v'leftecha v'aderech u'shachbecha u'v'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. In English, you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Top of page 39. Standing on parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before we ever stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Page 40, Michamocha. This is a song that the Jews sang when they crossed through the Sea of Reeds. People very often refer to it as the Red Sea, but it's a mistranslation. It's the Sea of Reeds. And when they crossed over and then the sea swallowed up the Egyptians, they sang this in gratitude for their lives and for the miracles that they had witnessed. So this is the question as a musician. Did this song exist? I mean, these principles existed. Who is like you, God? Right? That existed before then. That was like way back in Abraham. Who is like you, God? There's no one like you, God. Human beings can't be like you, God. That was the whole point of Abraham, the father of monotheism, where we all come from. But did they all have this song before? Or what I think was even more magical, did they have this prophecy all at once together? And I've experienced this as a musician where you kind of know what the next person's going to do. As an improviser, you know what the next person will do. This is on a higher level. The whole entire people knew what each other was going to sing and say at the same time. It's just food for thought. I'm not going to say what it is or it isn't, but it's interesting to think about. Michamocha, page 40. Yai da da Mihi chamocha bailim Adonai, mihi kamocha nedar bakodesh, norati hilot o sefele, norati hilot o sefele, mahalechutecha rauvaneka, bokei ayam lifnei Moshe uMiriam, zeli zeli anu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. ונאמר כי פדה את יעקב ויעלו מי החזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. Let's do a little Vishamru on page 44. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. בני ישראל אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. We rise for the Amidah, the standing prayer, which is on page 46. And there's twice in this where we bend our knees and bow and then come back up as a sign of reverence. And just watch me for that if you don't know where it is. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Koneh HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'imaot, U'Mevi Gula Livnei B'neihem, L'man Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham V'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye Mitimat Harav Lehoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. Page 52. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהלוך הסלע. ברוך אתה אדוני האל HaKadosh. We now take this time to pray on our own, in our own words, to ask God for whatever we need, or to question, or to meditate, or to think back on our week, whatever we want to do. And take your time with this, and whenever everyone is sitting, we'll move on. If you go to page 62 at the bottom, may the one who makes peace in the high heavens make peace for us, for all Israel, and all who inhabit the earth. Say shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. O say shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. O say shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu, Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. O say shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. O say shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. O say shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ya'aseh shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Okay, we will now, before we go to Stavar Torah that I worked up for you guys today, just for those who didn't know, the rabbi is out sick. She doesn't have COVID. The cantor is not usually here today, so she couldn't make it. So I was told yesterday that, yesterday, that you're the rabbi and cantor and the piano player. I'm like, great, because I actually like it. I have to say, and I'll say this before I do my Devar Torah, words of Torah, I love learning, The working here has instilled a love of learning about Torah for me. And so when I have to, cram for something, I actually really like it. It feels like I'm injecting myself with happiness and knowledge. And it's better than checking Facebook all day long. I'll say that much. There we go. Okay, so we will turn to page, and forgive me, I don't have a cue sheet in front of me, so we're going to do Misha Berach, and I think it's on 250. I think you're right. Around there, 253, exactly. So I have a Misha Berach list. And I'll read this, and then what we'll do is what we usually do is I will open it up in the middle, in between the stanzas, to say any names of people that are in healing, including ourselves. We can always ask for healing for ourselves. Millie Rottenberg, Howard Simon, Gloria Berkowitz, Gittel Bat Chana, Bernice Portnoy, Burrell Ben Sima Vishmul Lieb, Steve Gellis, Shalom Abraham Ben Golda Ve'ishiyahu, Michael Rosenblum, Harav Miriam Yael Chaya Bat Sarah Yitzchak, Maxwell Zwain Menachem Mendel Ben Yehudit, Dora Maserati, Dr. Isokin Osamawata, Elaine Mentha, Marlon Williams, Eric Rivchin, Bela Leah Bat Chana, Zelda V'chaim, Tessa Kushner, and Rhoda Alarbe. And I also want to say this: if you know someone that needs healing, but you don't know their full name, Joe at work, whatever it is, fine, say that, because God knows, and it's the intention that counts. It's not the spelling of the name. Misheberach Avotenu Mekor habracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Any names, please feel free to say them out loud. Bela Bat Chayamasha, David Tovia Ben Bela, Misheberach Imotenu Mekor habracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Okay, so this week's Torah portion is Bahar, which actually means on the mountaintop, which is really interesting because the whole portion is nothing to do with mountains. It's all about being here in this earth, and it's actually a lot about agricultural law, and specifically in Israel. It doesn't apply to us directly as far as agriculture goes here, although there's things like leaving a corner of the field to the poor. I don't think there's, like, God's not angry about anyone doing that, leaving some of our field to the poor even here, right? But the point is, in Israel, in Jerusalem, in Israel, the land of Israel, these are mandated. And it starts with, saying that Moses received all these laws on the mountaintop. That's where they're talking about Bahar. And through these agricultural laws, we learn a lot about morality and business dealings, which we have today. And it's basically like everything in American culture, like all of our laws in work, it really comes from this, from the way we sell land and leasing land and everything. I learned a lot this week. So so it talks about these 7 years. There's 6 years of working the land, and it's actually says that the minute we go into Israel, when we first came out of Egypt and we went into Israel, it starts with what we call a sabbatical year. And they just observed this in Israel. I was in Israel. For those of you who don't know, I got married in Israel a year ago. And so I was in Israel for a year, and they were observing the sabbatical year during that. And the people that observe it, they actually can't plow their land. And there's ways around it. There's people that do ways around it. You can sell it to a non-Jewish person that live in Israel, and there's a third of the population, if you didn't know, is Arab, Bedouin, Baha'i. There's a variety of different people there. It's a very diverse land that a lot of people in America don't know, that it's a democracy, and there are all these different people that are not just Jews in the government, and they're allowed to run for government, and they're allowed to be college professors, and they're allowed to, there's discrimination laws against them, all those things. So back then, there was also non-Jews that lived there, and one of the things that people do now is sometimes they'll sell the land to a non-Jewish person. It's kind of like what we do on Passover when we have like food that we're not supposed to have. We sell it to a non-Jew, and it remains in our house, but legally we don't own it anymore. And then we buy it back. And technically, if they don't want to sell it back to us, they don't have to sell it back because they actually own it. So the laws are there's 6 years where you're allowed to work the land, and it was completely an agricultural society back then. Everyone, that's how they had cattle, they had crops that they grew. There wasn't anything imported from outside. So there was six years where you work the land, and in the 7th year you cannot plow it or harvest it or work on it. It doesn't belong to you, it belongs to God. And for that 7th year, the land is basically open to everybody. Anyone that wants to come in and eat your food, you can't say, no, you're eating too much of my land, this is my land next year. It's not, whoever owns it, it's not their land anymore. And this teaches us that, like, the possessions, we're in a very possession culture, like every commercial we see on TV is about, like, if you get this, you'll be happy. Once you have this product, you'll get happy. And then it's not that product, it's the update for the iPhone 14, right? We're never happy, right? So this actually says that we don't really own these things. Like, yes, I bought my iPhone, but I don't really own it. Like, my life is given to me from God. My wife given to me from God, which is a Jewish concept that, I think make feminists happy, that, like, I don't possess my wife, right? I don't possess her. Like, she's not really mine. Everything comes from God. And so this 7th year, the animals, wild beasts, and domesticated animals are allowed to eat freely. Everyone's allowed to eat, anywhere. And the main reason for it is about trust. Pretty much all the laws, the way I see them in Torah, like the sacrifices, which we don't do anymore, are all about, like, giving something up. Shabbat, we give up if we do it, we give up email or phone or work or like questing for more, or people that observe it, that we try not to cook on Shabbat. We cook the food beforehand, things like that. With the things we give up, the trying to control. That's really what it is. I'm a New Yorker, and I'm in the entertainment business, and I get an acting job, and it's great, and I work with good people, and then I have to search for the next job. So I'm always trying to control. That's my thing, because that's what I have to do for my job. But these laws teach us to be okay with trusting. I have friends that are single in New York City. In New York, dating is crazy. It's like there's so many people dating, and there's so many choices, and everybody has these high standards and everything. And we're always on the apps looking for that person, and it's really about trusting. I really feel like the way when I met my wife was when I just let go, and I was just like, all right, like if it happens, it happens, and then that's when it happened. And I find that's when I get acting work too, or more clients to teach, or whatever it is, when I just let go. And like, there's a term, let go and let God. Like when I just let go, I have to do some work, but it's not me controlling it. My wife always says it to me, it's all in God's hands. It's all in God's hands. So this is really difficult to not plow. There's no 7-Eleven. There's a place called AM PM. It's the Israel 7-Eleven, right? AM PM, it's like 24 hours, right? There's nothing, there's no grocery store. Like, if the crops don't grow, people don't eat. And so every 7 years you do this, and then the next year you have to start plowing the field, and then it's like waiting for the next year. So it's really all about trust. And there's 7 years, and then this happens every 7 years. Working the field 6 years, 7 years. Working the field 6 years, 7 years. And this happens 7 times. And then on the 7 times 7, on that 7th year, there's something called the Jubilee year. It's the 50th year. Every 50 years, this happens. And on the 50th year, this talks about like leasing, like where we get our, like, this is like 3,000, 4,000 years old, like leasing, like we're allowed to lease our land if we own it. It was originally, the land belonged to the different tribes, right? And so everyone had their own land, and they were like the contractors of that land, and they could sell it to anybody, so you could sell it to them. But in the 50th year, it goes back to that original landowner. So it shows that nothing is ever, we always want certainty, right? This teaches us that certainty is, we're never certain about anything, like no one is really certain about anything. So the number 7 is magical number in Israel. It's 7 days of the week. 7th day is Shabbat. 7 days Jubilee year. 7 times 7. 7 is a sabbatical year. 7 times 7 is a Jubilee year. And there are all these like wonderful laws about, like how you can't sell. I mean, just anything, like it's kind of we know it instinctually nowadays, like it's like common sense to us, but this is where it comes from, that like, okay, if the house is not working well, you don't sell it to someone without telling them there's a hole in the furnace, right? These types of things, like if there's something wrong with the land, you have to tell the person, if somebody like putting a stepping stone in front of the eyes of the blind, someone that doesn't understand something, like to swindle them in some way. This talks about that. Like in the Jubilee year, all the land goes back to the original owners. So somebody was like telling somebody, hey, I'll sell this to you for this amount of shekels, and then they didn't tell them, guess what, next year this isn't yours anyway, because the law is like it's not going to be yours next year because it goes back to the original owner. That was, of course, against Torah law, and people didn't do it. People followed it. What else? Yeah, so this is just about certainty, and I just want to encourage you, whatever you're going through in life this week, just trust that everything's going to be okay. We're here together. I'm blessed to be here in front of you guys. I guess seeing familiar faces and seeing young children, and we're all healing. So just trust that. Just trust that everything is going to be okay. I mean, if people can basically say, I'm not going to plow the field, and trust that there'll be enough food for everybody, Yeah. I also want to say there's also mentions of slavery and things in here, but it's really important to say that they talk about that these things that they call slaves. There's indentured servitude, manservant, maidservant, and then they also have this word slave, right, which is a very dirty word for us these days, right? But if you really understand the Hebrew Torah, other religions came along and they tried to justify slavery by our Torah. And if you really understand this, it's not the slavery that was happened in America. These laws were like you had to have days off, you had to worker rights. They were just like they on the seventh year they were open to eat as much of the land as they want. It wasn't the land, like the slaves and the maidservants and the manservants and all that. They're open to eat the land and live off the land. Also, they used that year where they weren't working to develop themselves spiritually. So they did extra Torah study during that time to enhance their relationship with God. And the end of the 50-year cycle, all the manservants, maidservants, slaves, anyone that was bought, and Jews actually sold themselves to slavery to other nations too. You were commanded to redeem your fellow Jew, which we still do. When a Jew is in trouble, we reach out to help them. Like the Jews in Ukraine right now, there's a lot of campaigns right now to reach out and save the Jewry there, because it's where so much of what we know is from there. Thank you guys for allowing me to speak, and trust. All right, so we will now go to Aleinu, which is on page 280. Oh my God. I'm sorry, 280. Feels like 282. There we go. Let me rise for Aleinu. Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כאויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. On page 287, may we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding, loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear, doubt, and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Okay, we now come to the part of the service where we remember those we have lost. Remember those we've lost. And so I'll read this your site list, and if there's anyone else that I'm missing, please let me know. We're still in Shlosh Shlim for Michael Daniel Leto, and we are remembering Ray Bailey, Elizabeth Fulop, Ronald Gale, Lawrence Goldstein, Ruth Golan, Murray Heisen, Doris Pliskin, and Ronald Tarlow. Is there anyone that Is there anyone else that I'm forgetting? Okay. All right. Joel, what? Okay, so we have to have a minion to do this, and there's 2 people watching on the Zoom, so unfortunately we can't do this. But I just would like to, Rabbi very often asks somebody to ask people that are remembering somebody to say something about that person, and I was wondering if do you want to say anything, just like a memory or 2, what you remember the most about your dad? Thank you so much for that. I will do the ending of it. Ose shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru. Amen. Okay, so we will. I'm going to just read. We have some announcements really quickly, and then we will do an Adon Olam, and we will cut some challah, and we have wine and cheese and crackers and tea and coffee, and actually I'm not sure about the coffee, but there's tea. So Seth, would you like to read these? Or Glenn, you want to read these? Great, thanks. Thanks.
All right. Good evening. Thank you to the board member, family who sponsored the pre-neg, and thank you to the board member, family member who sponsored the Kiddush. Thanks to me for the live stream.
Thank you, Seth.
You're welcome. Because of the high COVID infection rate, we are asking you to remain masked during services and to social distance during the pre-neg and the O-neg. That's a change of policy. Thank you to the 87 donors who gave to the Hudson Gives Drive. We raised over $12,257 for the social hall renovation. That's 68% of our goal of $18,000. Out of 101 organizations participating, we came in 18th place. Borscht is back, and we are celebrating Temple Beth-El's 150th birthday. Please mark your calendar for our annual night of comedy on June 11, and help us sell ads for our birthday journal. Please help us make this our first fundraiser in 3 years, a robust success. We hope you enjoyed our wine and cheese pre-neg, and we'll stay for the O-neg tonight immediately following services, and consider sponsoring an O-neg for a special occasion or just to celebrate being together in the community. If you are interested in sponsoring an O-neg, please contact the office. Tonight is graduation Shabbat. Mazel tov to all those graduating this year. Special for high school grads, Hillel wants to welcome incoming freshmen. Please let Rabbi Morit know your seniors' plans so they can be connected to their local Hillel house. The book club will meet Thursday, May 26th, to discuss Maura Marion's Blondaking in the Belgian Resistance. Frida Heller speaks. Maura Marion will join us. Our next Tot Shabbat will be in person, May 28th, 10:30 a.m., for singing, dancing, story time, and other age-appropriate activities. On the evening of Shavuot, we honor the gift of Torah at Mount Sinai. Traditionally, we do this through an all-night study session called Tikkun Leil Shavuot. This year, Tikkun Liel Shavuot will take place Saturday, June 4, at 8 p.m. through the night until 11 a.m. Sunday. Our Shavuot congregation picnic and ice cream social will take place Sunday, June 5, from 12 noon to 3 p.m. We will also have live music. Do the mitzvah of bringing TBE to those at home. Join the tech crew that live streams our services. Talk to me, Seth Lubin, for details. Please see the newsletter for other volunteer and mitzvah opportunities to strengthen our community and get involved. Or just ask Tom or Rabbi at the Oneg. Change the world one meal at a time with 1 hour out of your week. Help feed our hungry and homeless neighbors at our food pantry, Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. Don't have an hour? Feed them with a donation for the food we buy. Details on the website, or just show up on Wednesday. You'll be glad you did.
All right. So we join together on an Adon Olam. Oh no. I hope I gotta find the page for this. Yep. I think everyone pretty much knows it. It's 321. Right, cool. Adon Olam Hashem Halach B'terem kol Yitzir Nira Li'et Nasa V'chefso kol Azar Melech Shemo Nikra V'acharei Kichlor HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora V'hu haya, v'hu hove, v'hu yeh b'tifara. V'hu echad, v'ein sheni, lehamshilo, lehachbira. V'li reshit, v'li tachlit, v'los, v'hamisra. V'hu eli, v'chai goali, v'tzorech li b'et sara. V'hu nisi umanos li, menat kosi b'yom ekra. B'yado avkiruchi, b'erishan b'ayira. V'himruchi geviati Adonai v'lo yira. So we will do some challah, and then we will head into the back for wine, cheese, crackers. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Here we go. Take two. Okay, here you go. I got it. Here you go. Yeah. Please. All right, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Hello. Hi. I like that dreidel book. You want one too? Here you go.